Welcome my friends, I hope you have a great day. Today I am sharing an interesting movie with you, so before the video starts, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch more interesting videos. Thank you. The story begins at the local harbor, where Tyler and Margot wait for a boat. They're going to a special island to eat at a fancy restaurant called Hawthorne. Tyler really loves food and is super interested in fancy dining. When the boat comes, they're surprised to see a lot of important people getting on too. There's a famous food critic named Lillian, her boss Ted, an actor named George, his girlfriend Felicity, and some big tech investors. Margot is worried because she knows one of the businessmen, Richard, and doesn't want him to see her during the trip. They're served the first fancy dish, and Tyler loves it, but Margot isn't impressed. When they get to the island, the person in charge, Elsa, calls Margot by the wrong name. So Tyler has to explain that there was a change of plans and he brought a different person with him. This makes the situation uncomfortable. Before eating, there's a tour for the guests. Elsa shows them around, explaining that the restaurant's workers do all the hunting and farming, so they all live there. The chef also lives there, but his house is private. Then they go into the restaurant and see that the kitchen is open, so they can watch the cooks at one table. There's an old lady named Linda who seems out of place. When Richard finally notices Margot, he asks his wife to switch seats with him so he can see better. Elsa tells everyone they can watch the cooks cook, but no pictures are allowed. Tyler gets close enough to see everything and asks lots of questions, but the cooks tell him to stop because he's distracting. Then Chef Slowick arrives, and Elsa says something to him that makes him look at Margot. The first dish is a free appetizer. Lillian takes her time to smell and taste everything carefully, but Felicity is busy breaking up with George. Margot, who likes the dish but isn't crazy about it, so Tyler has to explain why it's important. Then it's time for the first course. Slowly, it claps to make all his cooks turn around at once. He talks about his work and says everyone should enjoy their food, not just eat it. Tyler tries to say something, but SLO scolds him for interrupting. Tyler keeps taking pictures, even though it's not allowed for the second course. Slowly, it claps and says bread is for regular folks, but since his guests aren't regular, they won't get any bread. The next dish is a plate without bread, just a little bit of tasty stuff on it. Tyler really likes it, but Margot feels disrespected. Lillian notices that the sauce doesn't look right, so they send her a whole bowl of it as a joke. The tech guys want bread, even saying they work for the owner of the island, but they're told no. Elsa tells them they'll eat less than they want and more than they deserve. Margot won't eat her food, and Tyler tries to take it but breaks a glass by mistake. Slowick becomes more interested in why Margot isn't eating. Margot says there's no food, but Slowick says he made the portion small on purpose so they wouldn't get full. Margot still won't eat, and Slowick leaves a bit upset, which is surprising. By checking on Linda kindly, Margot can't help turning to look at Richard, and notices this, causing her to point out that Margot looks like their dead daughter. Richard pretends he doesn't know Margot and asks his wife to change the subject with another clap. SLO announces the third course called Memory, which prompts him to share a memory about his family's old taco nights. He reveals that Linda's his mother and that she's been drunk since he was a kid. His father was a drunk first, and one night Linda called him out for it, so the man tried to kill her with the phone cord to save his mother. Little Slowick grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed his father in the thigh, but now he regrets not having killed him to remember that special taco night. The dish is a smoked chicken thigh served with a pair of scissors in it on top of a phone cord. The tortillas were made fresh, but to add a touch of innovation, they've been engraved with the laser machine. Everyone is disturbed by the story, but things get even more awkward when they discover the memories on the tortillas. Lillian finds pictures of restaurants that closed because of her bad reviews, and Anne is shocked to see photographs of her husband's private life. One in particular shows Richard going out with a strange woman, but Richard swears it's just a prank. George finds pictures of his role as Dr. Sunshine, and the Tech brothers are disturbed to find their company's tax records that prove they've created invoices with fake charges. Elsa refuses to explain how they acquired that information, and when the men threaten to close up this place, Elsa cryptically says it won't be necessary. Tyler sees himself taking pictures of the food and thinks Slowick hates him. Margot finds the images insulting and wants to send the dish back, but Tyler snaps at her and calls her a child for not behaving correctly. Margot decides to go to the bathroom, and Elsa rushes to stop her from entering a forbidden silver door when she makes it to the bathroom. Margot gets close to the window to have a smoke and notices an employee running with a pair of angel wings in his arms at that moment. SLO comes to ask Margot why she refused to eat again since he's feeling wounded by her attitude, but Margot just says she isn't that hungry. SLO also wants to know who she really is, and when she says she's just Margot from Nebraska, Slowick doesn't believe her. A moment later, the cooks start the preparations for the fourth course by putting a piece of fabric and some decorations on the floor. Slowick introduces everyone to Jeremy, one of his sous chefs, who created the next dish called the mess. Jeremy studied at an important culinary school, and his dream has always been to work for SLO. While SLO admits he's talented, he doesn't think Jeremy is great. Jeremy may want a life full of prestige like Slock's, but SLO thinks his life is full of pressure. Not to mention all the unhappy customers and critics that won't appreciate his work. SLO asks Jeremy if he wants that life, and when Jeremy says no, SLO kisses him on both cheeks and steps back before Jeremy takes out a gun. Then Slowick announces the fourth course, and Jeremy ends things in front of anyone. Cooks aren't surprised by this and watch solemnly, but all the guests freak out and step back except for Tyler, who finds this fascinating as the body is taken away. Slow asks everyone to sit down and accept this is part of the show. Everyone begins discussing if the death had been real or not, and Richard has had enough. He tries to leave with Anne, but Elsa stops him, explaining there's no available boat. Richard still insists, causing Elsa to order the chefs to grab him and get his ring finger. Guests start freaking out again except for Tyler, who is still enjoying his meal without a care while Richard wiggles on the floor in pain. Elsa returns the fallen wedding ring to Anne. SLO once again explains this is part of the menu, and Lillian accepts it, but the others are starting to get afraid. Felicity wants George to have a talk with Slowick since they were supposed to be their friends, but George confesses he lied to impress her. Elsa brings Margot to the kitchen, where Slow tells her she's simply wrong. He can tell she isn't a Margot, and that's a problem because she wasn't part of that original menu plan. SLO wants to know if Margot is on the side of the guests or the restaurants, not that it matters because everyone's dying tonight anyway. Margot rushes back to her table and tears and slaps Tyler when he won't stop talking about the food. The whole mood in the restaurant is tense and nervous. Soren goes crazy and decides to try to break a window with the chair, but it's made of unbreakable glass, so Elsa just takes him back to his table. The next course is tea served as a palate cleanser, and SLO takes the chance to ask if anyone has any questions. Tyler makes a stupid question about the tea, but George comes through and wonders what's going on. SLO explains their ingredients in a degustation concept, but this shouldn't be a surprise. For example, Lillian is a monster that causes restaurants to close because of her personal taste, and Ted coddle her. The cooks bring more broken emulsion for Lillian, and Elsa brings Margot a kitchen timer, saying she has 10 minutes, and asks for a doctor for Richard. So Slow points out they've been the most loyal customers for 5 years, yet they can't name a single dish they've eaten here. SLO worked to become a very exclusive chef, but it wasn't until recently that he finally understood that he's been working to satisfy people who can't be satisfied, like his own mother, since Slow keeps referring to the place as his restaurant. Bryce reminds him that the actual owner is Doug Varick Slowick. Slowick replies that he actually owns Doug himself, and at that moment, it's revealed that Doug is hanging outside while wearing the angel wings. Dave tries to offer money to save him, and when Slow turns him down, he tries to run away, only to be stopped by the staff. Bryce points out that Doug kept Slowick open through the pandemic, but Slowick complains that Doug kept questioning his menu. Elsa makes a sign with her arms, and Doug is lowered into the sea until he drowns, prompting SLO to announce he's finally free before going to his office. Suddenly, the timer on Margot's table rings, and she's asked to go see SLO. Margot admits she isn't supposed to be here, and in return, Slowick admits he can tell Margot's a fellow industry worker. He wants to know why Margot kept staring at Richard, making her confess that she's actually a street worker. Richard had been one of the few clients that managed to rile her because he wanted her to pretend to be his daughter while they were getting frisky. Both Slowick and Margot agreed that they used to enjoy serving others, but bad clients have made them hate their jobs. Afterward, Slowick takes everyone outside. The next course is presented by Suff, Catherine, who explains Slow has flirted with her many times, and she's always said no. SLO didn't fire her, but stopped looking her in the eye, and this inspired the next dish called Man's Folly. Then Catherine stabs Slowick on his leg and hugs him before staining his chef's uniform with blood, prompting him to apologize. Now all the male guests are given a chance to escape. They'll have a head start of 45 seconds, and then the staff will try to catch them. All the men begin running except for Tyler, so Slowick has to send him out there while Catherine takes the women inside. The women try the sixth course while sharing a table with Catherine, who explains that everyone dies. Lillian's compliments make her cry, and all the other ladies begin offering compliments as well to keep her happy, and asks Margot if she knows her husband. And Margot admits she does, but Anne doesn't comment on it. Margot ends up admitting her real name is Erin, and she's from Massachusetts outside. Tyler spies on them through the window because he hates that he's missing a course. Meanwhile, the staff goes after the men and finds them with no issues, no matter if they went to the forest or the beach. Ted hid in the smokehouse, and for his efforts, he's been given a passer egg. All the men are brought back to the restaurant, and George sarcastically apologizes to Felicity for being a failure, which makes her admit she's been stealing money from him. George already knew, and Felicity, whom he knew, suddenly slow it down and announced the menu couldn't continue as planned until they solved an unresolved matter. He approaches Tyler and makes him confess that he had always known tonight's menu would include everyone who dies. Tyler had a date, but his girlfriend broke up with him, so he hired Margot because the restaurant didn't take reservations for just one, never caring about the fact she'd die. Margot's upset by this revelation and attacks Tyler, but the staff quickly pulls them apart. Next, Slowick points out how much Tyler knows about food and gifts him a chef's uniform before pushing into the kitchen and asking him to cook in front of everyone. Even if Tyler doesn't want to, Tyler's cooking is messy, especially since Essello keeps making fun of him for being a knowledgeable foodie, meaning the final dish is an absolute disaster. Slowick tells Tyler with ease why the mystery has been drained from his art and whispers something in his ear that causes Tyler to take off the chef jacket and run in tears afterward. Slowick takes Margot aside to ask for a favor to start preparing dessert. They require a large barrel that is supposed to be in a corner, but Elsa forgot to bring it. Essello wants Margot to go get it and ignores Elsa when she says the staff can do it. On her way out, Margot discovers Tyler has ended things for himself, but she doesn't care. Slowick then returns to the dining area, where George points out that this isn't really fair. Slowick explains George is being punished because he saw Dr. Sunshine some years ago and ruined the first day off he had in months. Span, on the other hand, Felicity will die because she graduated from Brown University without any student debt. Meanwhile, Margot makes it to the smokehouse, but instead of grabbing the barrel, she grabs a knife. Afterward, she sneaks into Sue's house, which is an exact copy of the restaurant. But with a bed in it, Margot tries to leave through the silver door, but she's interrupted by Elsa, who has her own knife, and reminds her that this area is out of limits. Margot defends herself with objects from the kitchen as she points out she doesn't want to work here. But Elsa says she didn't forget the barrel, and by trying to keep the knife away from her body, Margot ends up accidentally killing Elsa after getting over her fear. Margot takes Elsa's keys and opens a silver door inside. Inside, she finds a simple room filled with memories of Slow's past, when he was happy with his family and Job. There's a radio there, and Margot tries to use it to get help. Meanwhile, in the restaurant, Bryce is surprised with a cake because his friend said it was his birthday. But before he can blow out the candles, Margot bursts in with a barrel through the main door. Slowick confesses that he used to be bad, but now he's good. His chef's hands are so tough that he can touch fire without pain. Just then, a boat comes near the island, and Essello realizes Margot used the radio. The staff quickly clean up any blood, and Essello warns that if the guests ask for help, an innocent person will die. Coast Guard Dale enters, but nobody speaks. Instead, he notices George and asks for an autograph, as he's a big fan of Dr. Sunshine, so George pretends to give him one. When Dale is about to leave, he finds a paper saying, "Help us." He takes out a gun, ready to protect the guests, who now speak up. Dale points the gun at Slowick for a moment, then at a candle on Margot's table. It's just a lighter shaped like a gun. Dale isn't a Coast Guard, he's on Ski's staff. Now he can go back to the kitchen. Slowick is disappointed in Margot for betraying him, saying she's as bad as the other guests. Margot remembers something she saw in the house and takes a risk. She claps to get Essello's attention, saying she doesn't like his food and wants to send it back to Slow Falls for her trick, realizing the dishes were more about showing off than tasting good. Margot wants a simple cheeseburger, not fancy food. Essello smiles for the first time and agrees to make a cheeseburger with fries for $9.95. The other cooks watch in amazement as Slow happily makes a traditional cheeseburger, which he proudly serves to Margot. She likes the taste but can't finish it all, so she asks for the rest to go. Margot pays and leaves the restaurant. As Margot leaves, she feels unsure because others are still in danger, but Anne signals her to go. Margot reaches the harbor and escapes on Dale's boat, while Slowick reminds everyone it's time to pay $1,250 each without tipping. They all give out their credit cards and get a bag of treats, including one of Doug's fingers. Then they're told it's dessert time. The cooks decorate the floor like a plate and put chocolate hats and marshmallow vests on everyone. Slow says they're part of his ruined life now, so they'll have the worst dessert. SLO grabs a coal from the oven and throws it, starting a fire that consumes the restaurant and everyone inside. Meanwhile, Margot stops the boat to eat her cheeseburger while watching the fire, using the menu to clean her mouth. Thank you for spending your precious time on this video. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more videos. See you in the next video.